What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and in continuing my series of Disney movie reviews, I'm here to let you know that Peter Pan is no perfect movie. And as most of you know, Peter Pan is about the Darling family, Wendy, John, and Michael, who are upset with their father because he wants them to grow up faster and forget about their childhood fantasies about the legendary hero Peter Pan. So Peter Pan himself arrives at their window one night and whisks them off to Neverland, where they never have to grow up, and the only danger that they would face is the evil pirate, Captain Hook. And I was super excited to rewatch this movie because this was one of the cassettes I really watched a lot of as a kid. I loved the adventure of it. I loved Peter Pan. I loved Hook as a villain, especially with the crocodile. And I'm happy to say that this is still one of my all time favorite Disney movies because throughout the majority of the movie, I was either smiling so hard, laughing so hard, or singing along with the songs. And that's honestly the best thing a Disney movie can do. And one of the biggest things that gives this movie this sense of awe and wonder is Neverland itself. We never flat out learn how this place came to be, what the rules are, what magical limitations this island has, but that's actually part of the charm. The less we know about this island, the more we can imagine for ourselves what kind of things happen in this world and what the characters do in their spare time. For example, in their Neverland hideout, the Lost Boys have a pond in their ceiling, and fish stick their heads out of the water without having to fall down. Imagine these Lost Boys jumping up into a pool and swimming upside instead of having to dive down. In fact, if you look really close at that picture, you can see these tree branches that are almost like ladders. So you can kind of imagine these things for yourself. And that's the best thing this movie really does is make that sense of imagination happen to you no matter how old you are. When you really think about it, Disney movies tend to have recurring themes and recurring characters about what it means to grow up. There are certain characters in this movie who either grow up too soon and forget what it's like to be a kid, and as a result, they become very strict and stern, almost to the point where they alienate everyone in their lives. Or you have characters who completely refuse to grow up and instead pick and choose when to be mature and responsible and whether or not to be completely immature. And not only does it serve the comedy very well between Peter and Hook when they're clashing over their different ideas of what life is about, it also serves the arc with the Darling family very nicely. Wendy, especially at the very beginning, does not want to grow up. She wants to stay young forever just because it's so much fun. But after she goes to Neverland and her adventures with Peter become a lot more dangerous, she starts taking charge of her brothers. She becomes much more protective and a little bit more bossy, but it's good because that's her accepting the fact and realizing that it's inevitable that she'll grow up. But seeing Hook treat pretty much everyone around him almost like a dictator, just completely ruling over them, deciding everything for them without giving them their own choices. Meanwhile, whenever anything goes wrong, he acts like a spoiled brat. It really shows her and her brothers that even though you have to grow up, it doesn't mean you can't make your own choices. And having an imaginative side to you is a choice that they desperately want to keep. And as much as the characters are mostly one note in terms of personality traits, it's the voice actors that really bring those traits to life and make them constantly funny and entertaining to watch. Bobby Driscoll as Peter Pan has this very cocky and a little self absorbed attitude to him because I mean, for God's sake, the dude goes to Wendy's house just to hear stories about himself so he could pass them on to the Lost Boys. That's how sure of himself he is as a hero, as this almost mythical folklore type of character. But he still has a mature side to him that I don't think he really either realizes or acknowledges because if anything, he's a father figure to the Lost Boys. He tells them stories, he trains them how to be warriors. He's willing to risk his own life in order to rescue them, even if they betrayed him at one point. That's how loyal of a person he is, and you genuinely believe that it is possible for him to grow up, but you don't expect it from him because he still has that immature side to him. He feels like every day is an adventure, every day is just an opportunity to have fun. It's those selfish desires that you can identify with because everyone was a kid once. We wanted everything to go our way completely regardless whether we were trying to help someone or whether we were just trying to help ourselves by playing with our friends, by eating whatever we wanted, just little stuff like that you can look back and reflect on and just say, yeah, I've been this kid before. Difference is, I learned all these things and I accepted it. And I gotta say, Captain Hook is the villain, one of the all time best Disney villains ever, probably the funniest for me personally, because I just love how over the top he is and how cowardly and pathetic he is once he interacts with the crocodile. His facial expressions, his constant screaming and cries for help are just as perfectly timed as the slapstick with the crocodile. I gotta be completely honest, for the very first moment where they're in Skull Rock and Hook is doing everything he can to escape, I laughed my ass off the entire time. It was so perfectly well done. The expressions, the timing, the pacing, the fact that Smee was completely useless, it just made for such a fun time. And the music also really added to the fast-paced intensity of what was going on. But what I remembered rewatching this movie was just how surprisingly cunning he is, because dude is one of the only adults on this island. He still knows how to play people against themselves by using their own emotions, especially when he's manipulating Tinkerbell into screwing Peter over. He knows that jealousy will make people do absolutely anything. He knows that insulting someone's pride and ego, especially when he's fighting Peter and saying, "You're flying, you're a complete coward," he knows that's going to work. He knows that it's going to work to his advantage, and that surprisingly makes him a threatening and funny villain at the exact same time. The movie's also a lot more consistent at being a musical, because I've noticed a lot of gaps in between songs during some Disney movies, and to their defense, it's obviously because those songs serve the story at those exact moments, and it's the only reason I don't really point it out, but at the same time, it does make each song come out of left field because there's such a time gap. And because this movie isn't even really an hour and 20, every song feels spread out evenly as it possibly can over the course of every 10 minutes. And even though some of the songs sound like filler, they actually serve the story very nicely. Now, You Can Fly, of course, is the song that really gets you excited for the adventure. It really gets you settled in for the magic that you're about to witness. The flying sequence itself was extremely well done. The animation was so fast and fluid, and the camera angles made you feel like you were flying along with them, and that's one of the best things you can do. It's one of the most cinematic things you could possibly do. Following the Leader may seem like a filler song, but it actually does kind of subtly show how the Lost Boys are willing to be obedient and follow orders, but just like Peter, it has to serve their own selfish needs for adventure, for playing fight with each other. Not every song works, obviously, and I'd go on more about that, but chances are you probably already know what I'm going to say. You're probably already thinking the exact same thing, so yeah, there's really nothing else to mention there. My only real problem is that there are a decent amount of plot conveniences where characters stumble upon each other based on luck, and that's kind of what moves the story along. For example, when Mr. Smee captures Tink, how did he know that she was gonna be there? And plus, if you knew that Peter Pan was gonna take Tiger Lily back to her tribe, why not just follow the Lost Boys from the tribe to their hideout? You didn't really need to mess around with her head and play jealousy off of her, but I don't know. There are plot holes like that, and if they get in the way of your entertainment, I'm not gonna be completely surprised, but I was so entertained by just how catchy the music was, how fast and fluid the animation was, the sense and awe of wonder of being in Neverland, which was the best quality, and it's the best thing that you can ask for in a Disney movie, that I honestly didn't care about any of the real problems. Peter Pan, ever since I was 4, up until now, is still one of my all-time favorite Disney movies, and I'm going to give Peter Pan a 4.5 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. If you have seen Peter Pan, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Be sure to stay tuned for more Disney reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.